committee of the whole for the purpose of talking about Tom's proposals. We'll turn it over to you.
Yep, okay, it's, I guess I go back to quite a ways on this, back to when Keith was, chairman at that time, and, I was looking at to build our school up with something that we can offer the students hands-on before they graduate. Because not all the students are gonna be college material. And this is what I had an opportunity to talk to the governor too, was that this was lost years back when the schools had to cut back on funding. So what programs did they cancel? They canceled the manual arts. And with that in mind, I was looking at something that we could do to build our campus up, our school district up, and offer an opportunity for these kids to go on. And with that in mind, I talked with you, Mona, and you gave me permission to continue this, and I did this solely on my own. I did not implicate the board whatsoever. I did it strictly on my own, just to get a feel with the community what was out there. Well, once I put it out to the community, I was surprised at the response I got back. There was really, the community is really interested in seeing this happen. And what I wanted to do then, to provide the board with the best information possible, was to do a cross-section of the community so that you would get a good idea of what was out there. And so with that in mind, this is our intent. I could see that we could really have a good thing going here, and also I know there are a lot of questions that have to be answered. I realize that, and this is why I contacted Roy Smith there from IRRB, and he can fill in some of these answers that the board made questions they have to ask. And I guess with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Roy here, and Roy can give us a briefing on.
Madam Chair, can I pull a chair up here? Okay,
Sure.
thank you. I just sort of conversation. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As Mr. Gentilini indicated, he came in. I'm just so used to calling him Tom, if that's okay. Came in and we started this conversation, and I have to say that it has been a Tom Gentilini project. The first time that the Eveleth School Board was mentioned in any of this conversation was if I could be here tonight, and I'm happy to do so, and maybe help you explore some options for what I know is a difficult and sometimes emotional decision on what we're going to do with part of our campus. What I can tell you is that some of the information that you have in front of you that I provided, that is really the data, and I think you've seen it before when I talked about the Applied Learning Institute several months ago. But as we look at what our course offerings are across our high schools throughout northeastern Minnesota and throughout the country, basically we've seen this kind of pendulum swing from where we were very heavy into the manual arts, more into kind of liberal arts education. We lost a lot of those programs that were once so prevalent in our high schools across the country, and particularly on the Iron Range. We go back to the early days when you had the Smith-Hughes industrial arts curriculum. You could come out of high school basically millwright or welding ready or electrical ready to go into an apprenticeship or go work directly in the mining industry. And so while we know the economy has changed tremendously, and that mining is no longer our largest employer in the region, it certainly has an impact, and particularly the skills that we have used traditionally to train our students for careers in heavy industry, those core skills remain the same. Whether we are in power generation or pulp and paper or mining, or we're looking very heavily now into biochemical extraction technology for northeastern Minnesota, there's a core set of mechanical and electrical hands-on skills that are needed for that. If you look at that information that I provided, you can see that the lion's share of the job growth for our region are in the skilled trades. Well over 70%. Good paying jobs that require high academic skills plus the technical knowledge, and quite frankly, we know, and that's one of the reasons that we started the Applied Learning Institute, that a lot of those opportunities were lost for students. And so as we look at this project, the Manual Arts Building, would there be an opportunity to perhaps, with some financial help, resurrect that building along with the curriculum that would go with it, that could be collaborative with districts that surround you. And so there are questions I know about finance. Finances are tough in this day and age with declining enrollments and aging buildings and all those sorts of things. There's issues around equipment, and there's issues around teachers. And so I'm willing to try and shed any light on that thing. I can't make any promises here today as an employee of the agency or an employee of the colleges, but I can certainly help you explore some options that might be out there if you choose to go down the path of looking at that as an attractant to not only to your students here, but also in perhaps drawing students in that are attracted to that type of education from surrounding districts. Shall I, Madam Chair, we can talk about some possible finances that are out there, or I can stop, answer any questions, and just let you lead the conversation, and I'll tell you what I can.
Well, I think one of the confusions that we have here is this really wasn't a directive from the board, so I feel like this is a tad bit scattered.
Okay.
I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So Tom, why don't you tell us what your intent is? I mean, it's fine to talk about, we want all these things, we will grow supposedly because of them, but we all know that you can't find teachers. They're just not pumping them out the way they used to. Even with community experts, it's not as simple as hiring somebody who happens to be an electrician or a plumber. There is a process in place to make that happen. So what's the vision that we're working toward? What is it that you're asking us to address?
Well, as far as the teachers, Mona, I believe there's a lot of retirees out there. And retirees do not have to have a teaching license in order to teach. And I know the retirees would be more than glad to come in and help our youth.
Retirees of what sort?
Well, this would be, what we would have to look at is what programs we would put in place.
So you're talking about what they call community experts,
Yeah.
someone that worked in a certain field.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they don't get to just come in. There is still a process they have to go through to be qualified to hold those jobs. We don't just hire them off the street. There is a process.
You still have to have a license. You have to have a license to teach in the state of Minnesota.
So although you're called a community expert and you could be a retiree certainly from a given field, they still have to go through a fairly onerous process to meet the requirements necessary to do that.
Wasn't there something put out, Roy, where the state of Minnesota, due to a shortage of teachers, that they opened this up, that you did not have to have a license?
Well, you can, under community expert, or if you get a variance under hardship conditions, I'm thinking of what's happening at Big Fork right now. Hill City was under the same. We have some teachers in the region, Dale Ravela down at Floodwood, that came in under those conditions. They have to be working toward, and Superintendent Carey is correct, as is Madam Chair, they have to eventually, they have to have a teacher's license. But there is a process by which they can be working toward that. The other piece, however, that many districts are doing is, you have a licensed teacher here in Mr. Klaus, is it? Your industrial arts teacher. So with his connections out in the community, if I'm teaching a unit on electricity, and I want to bring Tom in to help with that, that's allowable. Now, he certainly isn't a licensed teacher in that area, but you can bring, we have engineers that are coming in from the private sector working with students across the region all the time. It's more of a district decision on security issues and what type of background check you want to put them through, but that's a possibility as well.
All right, so the teaching piece aside, what is it that you're asking us to address
Well,
then?
as a board, to come up with is to pursue this, to see what we can do to make our district a #1 district again, but to keep our students that we have. We will be able to offer them something that is not out there right now. So we can offer them and keep our students. And also maybe bring back some of our students that we've lost over the years. And this is giving an opportunity for the whole area. It's not, would not just be the Eveleth Gilbert campus. This would be throughout the whole area. Am I correct on that, Roy? We could offer this out?
It could be, Madam Chair, members of the board. I just finished with a meeting yesterday with the superintendent from districts on the West Range, who are looking at the exact same opportunity. They're looking at the potential for the ability to draw some funding from the Iron Range School Collaboration Account that was set up for multi-district collaborative initiatives that lead to enhanced educational opportunities for students, regardless of their zip code. And so, meeting with those individuals, this is not just a lone concept of having a technical center located on the east side of the range that would be open to students from other districts. And again, that's a board decision. I'm just kind of conveying the conversations that we've had. And so, what would that look like if done here with this building that was designed to do that? There would have to be some collaboration with another district, whether that be 2142 and getting some students from Cherry that might be interested, whether that be Mesabi East or Virginia or Mountain Iron or whatever that might look like. To qualify for those dollars. These are the kind of projects that those dollars potentially could go to fund.
What level of commitment would we need from these neighboring districts to start that application process? Because I mean, you're probably not going to say, here's $5 million. Maybe you could get Mesabi East to come for a Woods class.
Well, for a class, right?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, Superintendent Carey, that is a good question, and again, in my mind, and just not wanting to get too far down the road on this, but in my mind, a commitment would be some sort of joint powers, some sort of board resolution from those neighboring districts forming a partnership. When we talk about the teachers and the issue there, I would argue that if done fully all in, the teachers are there. You've got 3 teachers over at Virginia, you've got a couple up at Mesabi East, you've got 1 or 2 here. I would argue that much of the startup needs in terms of equipment are already there, because between this school, Mesabi East, Virginia, and Mountain Iron, the Applied Learning Institute has spent well over $1 million in state-of-the-art equipment that are sitting at 4 or 5 different campuses. So that part of the startup cost, I think, would be, could be manageable. And this is I understand, Madam Chair, this is a big hill to climb. I'm just here to present that there could be some possible opportunities if that's the direction the board chooses to go.
So Tom, where are you envisioning this happening?
Well, I would say possibly for us to start on it now, to get something going, to see where we're at as a
Right, but
board.
where
Well, it would
physically?
be next year, probably, wouldn't, no way.
No, but physically, where are we going to have this center of learning?
Well, this we'd have to look at, but what we have available in, what we have available in Gilbert, what we have available here in the campus here in Eveleth. And to get an engineering firm or architectural firm to come in and say, hey, okay, this is what we can do, this is what it's gonna cost, and go from there, and then go for the funding. But we have to start somewhere. To get the whole concept going, it's not any expense right now to the district, it's just to get the idea going and see if we can do it. And like I say, this is for the betterment of all of our students.
Well, I'm not against it, and I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because This is a big thing to take on. We're in the middle of a strategic plan that we haven't even completed, and now we're looking at a whole new avenue to go down here. We've already had to suspend some of our manual arts classes because there's no interest. That's not a matter of not offering them, that's a product of lack of interest to some degree, and the fact that there's just X number of kids and X number of classes, and you get to the point where there's a saturation. So it's not that I'm not in favor of having these classes, but just having them doesn't guarantee that we would have the students enrolled in them. And you'd have huge costs for transportation, these other districts would, I presume, if they're bringing them here, which could become an issue. But having the staff, creating the curriculum, opening a building or creating the center that would house this, we're talking huge money. And I doubt that that's going to be fully funded. So I would like to think that we've got sufficient information with the help of Mr. Smith and the research that you've done and what we learn on our own, that we don't stumble into this just as a speculation that it's going to happen. And again, I'm an advocate for the manual arts. I would like to think that we're going to have sufficient people doing these things. Not everybody can be a doctor or a lawyer. We're still going to need people to repair automobiles and to maintain homes and all the various skills that go into the industry to keep us, in the things that we choose to purchase. But again, I want to think that there's some beef to this. I don't want this to think that I don't want to go into this that it's just speculation that if you build it, they will come. I don't buy that.
We have a number of collaborative projects already with neighboring schools. Like we have an auto tech program with Virginia, Mesabi East. We take their kids on a Gilbert campus. We have a small engines class. We take Mesabi East in Virginia. We send kids over to Mount Iron for food occupations. We send kids to Virginia for welding right now.
And we cover the cost of that.
A lot of those, yeah, you do a lot of
Yep.
transportation costs. So I mean, a lot of these collaborations are in place now.
I wouldn't argue against that, Madam Chair, certainly. There are things taking place. And again, my goal is to just, there are opportunities out there for a multi-district collaborative initiative such as this, and financial support in which to do that if the right proposal is brought forward.
The bummer for us is our facilities right now, for our part of the collaboration. I mean, is that something, the commitment that we have now, can we start on that and build from that? Or, I mean, are you guys looking for more? Or does everything need to be here if we're gonna dump some money into it? Or, I guess.
Well, the original intent of the legislation, and we've received confirmation from virtually all of our board members that the intent of those dollars were for students and teachers, not for buildings and bleachers. And so it's very restrictive in terms of it has to really truly be a collaborative initiative if we're going to look at doing any bricks and mortar. The programming piece of it, we're been looking at telepresence. That's a piece that we can certainly use. But if it's a bricks and mortar project, such as the restoration of the Manual Arts building, it would definitely have to be. There would have to be some sort of an agreement with other districts to show that that's truly that it is truly a collaborative initiative between districts.
So what's going on right now would not, I mean, that's not going to be sufficient.
What's going on right now already has a funding source, I guess is what I'm saying. You have the Applied Learning Institute.
It does,
that is funding.
it does, but our facilities need to be improved on our end. I mean, for the
As a
programs
whole.
that we offer. But you're telling us that this fund is probably not going to help us with that.
If the individual district of Eveleth Gilbert comes forward with that sort of a project without some sort of financial backing from the community in terms of a referendum or levy, I would say no.
There you go.
And Madam Chair, that's me speaking. Certainly, you know, the politics of this situation could be vastly different by the time this thing ends, but that's my understanding on a Tuesday night in Eveleth.
And we're using you for the purpose of expert resource. We hold you, we do not hold
Harmless.
you responsible for any decision that we do or do
So I
not
sit
make.
next to him.
So if we're tough, but I think everyone can appreciate too that the scope of this, as we understand it, and bearing in mind, we have not been in on this. We weren't brought into this until now. This is the first we're hearing the nuts and bolts of this. I think to expect that we're going to take it at face value without asking questions would be a bit ridiculous. So, again, you know, I'm not against the plan, but there's more questions than there are answers as we sit here today. So,
Absolutely. I agree. And Madam Chair, I mean, and I'm biased as can be. I would love nothing better than for there to be a technical training center on the West Range where we could access the expertise of teachers from several different districts, where I could make one investment in equipment instead of 15. I mean, all of those things really make my heart sing. But I know as a district that this is a big, big cat to skin.
Well,
So-
and everyone sitting here understands the need for the manual arts. If you wanted to dump a big pot of money on us, we'd be happy to be the center.
Yep.
But this is a long-term commitment. This isn't a matter of finding the money to refurbish a building and get a program started. This has to be a commitment that we stick to for years and years and years, because it's going to take an awfully long time to build this program. It's not going to happen overnight. Just because we build it, they are not going to necessarily sign up for those classes. There's X number of hours a day, and the mandates from the state for what these kids have to take academically doesn't leave the time that it used to for what's often viewed as extra classes, you know, being able to sign up for the electrical and the plumbing and all the pieces that somebody would like to have. They've got to fit that in when you've only got maybe 1 or 2 hours over the course of a marking period to do that.
Madam Chair, you're absolutely correct, and it is a barrier to things that we look at, you know, across the region and across the state. You know, what can you fit into the credits required for graduation, and the restrictions of No Child Left Behind, and the 8 to 2:30 instructional day, and for some reason we all need the summer off to continue to work on the farm. And it just, you know, I think we're going to see some changes in education as a whole in terms of when courses are offered. Why do our facilities sit empty all summer long? Why are they closed basically at 4 o'clock in many cases? That's the other thing that is rather attractive about a you know, regional technical training center, is that, you know, it has the high school component certainly. But having it open after hours brings about all sorts of different entrepreneurial characters that want to come up and perhaps use the equipment that's in there and begin to work on different projects that they're working on right now in their garages at home. And you know, what sort of training can be done in there for students. So, you know, it can grow beyond just that 8 to 2:30 instructional day. But there again, there certainly are. It is a mountain to climb.
Well, would it be unreasonable to start to go in another district and see if what they think, and do a collaborative effort and to get it going? I mean, that would be no expense right all to the district.
I think first you gotta start out and see if there's interest in the student population. I mean, we could say, hey, there's plenty of interest here, but correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we not continue a carpentry class this semester because there was not enough kids signed up or something.
Okay.
There was a hand tools class and some others.
Yeah, I mean, there was one that we ended up, because like 3 kids were interested in. I'm for one, for the manual arts or industrial arts, or however you wanna, I'm a
I
machinist.
don't think anyone isn't.
No, we're all in favor of it.
You know, in the 20 years I've been in the machining technology world, programs all over the state have been ending because of lack of interest. And it's, as a machinist, CNC machinist myself, I think it's sad, and that's why I try to get more kids exposed to it, and, you know, it's a numbers game. If you get 20 kids, maybe one will get interested, you know, and, you know, I just sent Danette this week a copy to a show that's gonna go on in the cities in September, to try to get her to round up some kids to go to that, and, that's the first step. I mean, I'm completely supportive of anything industrial arts, whether it be machining or pounding a nail in or crimping some wire, but we gotta have the student population that's willing to participate. And how do we figure that out first?
Yeah.
That's the question, right?
Well, that's what I said, you know,
That's
there's,
the biggest
I
question.
mean, we
It's
can't
just-
push it.
It's continually dropped the last 20 years.
yeah.
We've tried many times.
And,
There's no interest of the younger kids.
Yeah.
There is a few, but not many. But how do you keep them interested while we're trying to rebuild and then try to attract more kids?
unless you go back to the model of the, you know, early school days where shop was a mandatory thing, where each kid had to pick a shop class, whether it was welding or metalworks or plastics, and we don't do that anymore, I assume, right?
No.
So kids were exposed to it, you know?
Madam Chair, if I could, the idea that students aren't interested anymore is really a district to district phenomenon that I haven't figured out, and I don't know if it lies in who's doing the career counseling, if it lies in how much parents know about the careers that are available out there. But I can tell you that in many districts, it's growing by leaps and bounds. Since we started the Applied Learning Institute in 2006, enrollment in the technical programs of the kids coming out of our local high schools into the technical programs at the community and technical colleges has gone up 76%. For the first time in history of Mesaba Range College, and it's been around for a long time, the number of graduates from the technical programs now outnumbers the number of graduates from the liberal arts programs. So, depending on where you are, your program may be going in, and it has a lot to do, again, it has a lot to do with who's in front of the classroom. My goodness, for what, as much as we know about how kids learn, technology, all those things, a lot of times it comes down to the talent of the person standing in front of the room. You know, you take a George Harridan, for goodness sakes. That guy is amazing. And you could put him anywhere, and kids would take his class.
I wish we could clone them.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
certain parts of him. Certain attributes of George. But
I know, but he's still a good.
So it is,
He's
and-
interested.
I don't know how many students you have that are going over to Mesaba or to Virginia and involved in the welding classes. When I go over there, I see the Eveleth jackets on those kids, and they seem to it's not a bother to them to be on another campus. I think where we really thrive though is like in the healthcare, where the students go right down to the college, and then they're on neutral. There's no turf war there. Because I don't imagine there's any kind of rub between Eveleth and Virginia still. I mean, I know
It's
Grand
actually
Rapids
coming way
Greenway,
down.
they're
Not at all.
cordial.
We don't get a ton of kids that move from one. If you want round numbers, I got 8 kids that go to Weldon next year. I have 15 that go to the nursing program down the street there. 3 to an emergency wellness program, first responder. 2 to the food audit program, 3 to the food audit program. Conversely, I get 9 from Mesaba East and 8 from Virginia that come to Auto 1. Same thing for Auto 2, 9 and 6 for small engines. We offered this past year hand and power tools. We had 0 kids sign up for that. We offered home and Repair maintenance, we had 2 kids sign up for that. CAD, computer aided design, we had 0 kids sign up for that. We're working 1, we had 3 kids sign up. And that's it for, so I mean, it's,
I think a lot of it comes down to, we gotta get more kids exposed to what these things are, and it's marketing, right?
It's marketing, yeah.
But how do you do it?
Get the kids interested.
we make them take in junior high though. They do
Oh,
general,
did they have
do
to?
general classes in 7th and 8th grade both.
Well, and that marketing, Madam Chair, that marketing is something that, you know, we're taking to heart at the agency and the colleges certainly, and trying to get out and continue to ring that bell, because it is an issue and you can't do it yourself. I mean, it takes, you know, industry partners out there talking about it to, you know, to really raise the awareness. And it, again, the pendulum has swung a long ways, and I think that with the retirement issues that we have, you know, there's a skills shortage that we're going to be looking at. So that part of it for me, if I put the IRRB economic development hat on, is a concern. It truly is, because you know, when we look, 20 years ago, if we sat down with a company, they wanted to know about tax breaks and if we build them a building and wage subsidies, and now the first question that comes out of their mouth is, am I going to be able to find the talent I need in the educational infrastructure to support it? First question. Then it comes the schools, then it comes what's the healthcare like. I'm willing to serve in the role that I've helped with Tom as a private citizen. If the board chooses to need any more information from me, anything that I can provide, I'm more than happy to do that. And again, this is it's an exciting conversation for me to have, even the possibility that it's being discussed, because I think there is a need for to really put those students at the center and determine what are their needs. And if we can't provide them within our district, to be able to find a place that they can be successful.
Our biggest need right now is, because you won't find anyone around this table that's going to argue that we need to do something about our man arts program. I mean, there will be no argument. But bricks and mortar is our big issue right now. I mean, we don't have the facilities for it. We don't. And to be honest with you, resurrecting that man arts building is not our answer. It just isn't. I mean, we need to do something else.
And,
But it is a bricks and mortar issue.
There's a lot of heart in this community for that manual arts building. It holds fond memories for a lot of folks. But the honest answer is it's so far out of compliance for having students in it, and there's so many issues regarding reopening it, I'd be real reluctant for the district to get that deep into investing in that specific building, not the program, I'm talking about that building. You know, we're talking millions of dollars to bring that into compliance. It needs more work than most folks would ever imagine.
It'd be cheaper to build a new building.
It would be cheaper to build a new
You know, it's hard to say, because I'd like to think we could blink our eyes and make it all happen, but
Well, Madam Chair, site notwithstanding, whether it's investing X million into that or investing whatever it takes to build East Range Technical Center, whatever it might be, the fact remains that the threshold for us at the agency is going to be multi-district. That's going to be the...
Well, when UNESCO went through with the facility study, the building is structurally sound. The building was built back in 1914, and the building is structurally sound. And the building could be brought up to 2015 code. With maybe
for millions of dollars.
It would cost more than it would cost to build a brand new facility. It would. I mean, that's a
No, I
fact.
think at one time, at one point, there was mention that $3.8 million to bring that building up to 2015 code.
That's just to do code, I mean, that's not to make it usable.
I think if the building is part of your
Just
overall
using
plan, I think it would be a huge stumbling block.
Well, just using that,
I think we need to dream bigger, I mean, if we're going in all in on this, we need to look at building a facility for this.
Well, part of the problem I have with it personally is we're in the middle of a strategic plan that, and you addressed UNESCO, everybody that's ever come in and looked at our structure has said that we have way more space than we have need for, and we need to be right sizing. So it could be that there's a way to make this happen with what we have right now, but even that doesn't come cheap because you still have to make it suitable for that purpose, and I'm concerned that this might be, in terms of timing, might be wrong, because we've got too many other things on our plate that we need to be fixing, let alone going out and starting from scratch on a whole new project. And I'm not against it, I'm just concerned that we're not going to give it fair shakes when we've got so many other things on our plate right now. We've restructured our administration, we're restructuring all our other programming, and is this the time that we really want to be adding that to it?
Adding more fuel to the fire.
Well, and again, I'm not
I
against
think
it, but
I
I'm
think it could
concerned
be part
about
of
the
the plan,
timing.
though, Mona. It can be part of the plan, but we don't know that yet.
But we don't even know where we are today, let alone putting something new on there.
Madam Chair, if it eases any angst, this is not one-time money. These dollars refresh themselves every February and August on the taconite tax pay. And so they're there until somebody changes that. If there were a change in legislation and they switched it back away from that particular fund, then they wouldn't be there. But so that, a decision, if it becomes part of the strategic plan, whether it's that building or a different building, again, for us, it's going to be that threshold is going to be, is it a multi-district collaborative initiative that leads to, boom, providing this sort of experience to students?
So correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't necessarily what we're already doing, where we're pairing and sharing with other districts. This is like, we want a centralized technical facility on our property.
Yep.
And the other schools come to us that,
But it's gotta be a collaboration, otherwise it isn't a right way.
So like you said, it would be like a joint powers thing, I mean, and we would be the host.
So there'd
of
have to
that.
be a strong commitment, an ironclad commitment to all.
I mean, and I can understand that, like Jeff said, I mean, it could be part of what we're eventually evolving into, but I still gotta know that kids would participate in it. I mean,
Well, the other
we could spin our wheels for 5 years getting something like this going, and then if nobody shows up, like nobody showed up this year, I mean, then what do? Then everybody else bails on us and we're the ones with the brick and mortar, you know? I mean, maybe I'm far reaching here, but.
I think, Madam Chair, you and Mr. Peterson, I mean, you have to be skeptical, and that's because it is a commitment of public dollars. But if you look at, for instance, the classes where there are good numbers in districts that do some sharing, it wouldn't just be your Eveleth students in that industrial maintenance class. That you may only have 6 or 7, but someone else has 6 or 7, and someone else has 5 or 6, and pretty soon you've got a full class of 30 there. How that works financially for you in terms of where those dollars go with those students is, that again would be laid out in your agreement with that
So
district.
you're talking multiple districts.
If you had,
It's not just a partner.
Well, I think, for us, a partner would be an
That's what I'm saying.
absolute must.
Different story though.
3 districts, you and 2 others would be even better, but at least 1 other. And when you think about it, what does that look like? Well, it might not be with Virginia, but Mesaba East, maybe that's easier. I look at well, you were at Cherry, I mean, they're certainly trying to build that program, that's not too far from here. They're a possibility with them. You've got the charter school just down the block here that I know struggles to have, you know, really quality industrial arts kind of experiences for the students that are there. I mean, that might not be your most favorite neighbor, but you know, if you could recoup some of those dollars coming back in, I don't know. Again, it's, you know, you can get awfully creative if you choose to go that route. But maybe it becomes, again, part of your strategic plan, something to look at. I think that's what Mr. Gentilini's goal in this, you know, that I understood it was, is let's take a look at the possibilities before we make any decisions.
So just to throw one point out there on this, say we go out and we try to ask neighboring districts what they think, and they say, hey, that's a great idea, we'll participate if it's in our district.
That would never happen.
You know, well, I mean, when they start hearing him saying, we'll give you some money for brick and mortar if you have a collaboration of multiple, this is your angle, I mean, maybe we get turned around, I mean, and then it kind of doesn't go anywhere anyway.
Yeah, it could, that's a real possibility. It's
And I'm just throwing it out there, because I mean, that's, as soon as you say, well, Virginia's bigger dog than us, and they're like, well, that's a great idea, let's do it, well, you know, we'll host it in our mind dump somewhere, you know? I'm all for it, I just would have to know that kids would participate, I mean.
That's the key. Because even looking at the material that was presented to us, you know, we've got supposedly a lot of names, we see some of them here on a petition. These aren't kids.
Oh, absolutely not.
So they can be as supportive as they wish, but when it comes right down to it, these aren't the people signing up for the classes.
I mean,
I think you better talk to the kids in all the districts.
Yes.
And see if there's interest.
Who wrote this petition? Who put that together?
Who
Yeah,
did?
I originally did it with, sent it out.
Yeah, but who wrote it?
Oh, I wrote it.
Okay? Because this, it doesn't address,
It's really
Kids.
not a petition, it's asking for support.
I misstated, but the,
It's asking for support, it's not petitioning the board at all. It's asking for support, and the rest of it is with the community, where the community come and said, yes, we do support this.
They'll support it as long as you don't have a referendum.
right, well,
Well, you don't know that either, well, I mean, if you don't try it, you know,
No,
they all say nothing venture, nothing gained, you know, I mean, we're gonna sit here and
But-
just watch her do this.
no one's suggesting that, Tom, but the other side of this is you can't come in and tell us, vote for this, it's a good idea, without us having the opportunity, which is why we're having this meeting. We want to be able to ask questions and play devil's advocate a little bit and feel better about the decision that we'll ultimately make.
And, right, I said it's gotta be a board decision, whether this moves forward or if it dies.
But what, I mean, let me ask you this, what is the board decision at this stage?
Well, why don't we go and look for another district, and let's get
Well,
what
we,
we're doing.
first we have to know what we want to build
Right.
before we go ask if
What are
somebody
we
wants to be a
asking
part
them to
of.
join? Yeah.
Is it as, I mean, is that what it is, as Mr. Smith said, that we want to start the building blocks to an East Range technical facility? Is that the language you use?
That's the language that I use.
Well, that's what I said, I'm not trying to say that's what it is, that's the language you use, right? I mean, is that the vision that we're trying to talk in circles about, or is there, I mean, and I think I get it, but I'm just trying to keep beating the dead horse so it sinks a little harder, you know, so we're all on the same page, but.
I think that we have to do something. I'm not sure what it is, but we have been spinning our wheels here for how long, doing nothing. Virginia's adding a whole new section over there for ECFE, and we're doing diddly squat, because we're too busy trying to study it.
Yeah.
That's why there's a charter school.
That's right. Virginia.
Because nobody listened to anybody else, we didn't do anything. We have to do something. Even if we have to have more meetings, decide what we're gonna do, we have to do something. Otherwise, we
Which is
might as
what
well
we're
all
doing.
change our zip code to 55792, I think.
But that's why we're having this meeting, is to do that very thing, is to
We
get the
have to.
information to the board.
Tom has got us
Because the board was the only group that didn't have it.
interested to where we have to do something, because right now, if we don't do anything, You might forget it, you might as well change the number out in front of the school.
Virginia's got $6 million going in into,
Because one reason why,
What are we
They were
doing?
smart.
look how many kids they have over there, because they look at different programs.
Right.
We have to do something. Granted, we don't have the kids and the money to do it right now, but we have to do something.
But we can look into it to see what we have.
And to get, whether or not students are even interested, it's not like it's a major process anymore. The
No,
internet, you send out a survey, get some feedback, they calculate it all for
Well,
you.
that's where I think it comes
I
in.
think we need to do something like that, just to. get-
Kids need to know what half of this stuff is too, that's, you gotta educate them a little bit. You wanna take electrical? Well, I don't wanna do that, well, I
Do
mean,
a
it's more than
student-only
just.
survey, not necessarily just here, but
Like-
every
That's
district.
why you tell them how much an electrician makes an hour.
We offered SolidWorks CAD
Yeah.
CAD this year. I mean, I was excited because I'm from that. I mean, it's how the world is made, and not one kid signed up. You know why? Because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if they understood what, SolidWorks was, I mean, is SolidWorks can make, design the iPhone, they make
Everything.
buildings, and, I mean,
Yeah.
kids just didn't know it. So you gotta educate them on what it is before you see if they're interested in it. And how do you do that with limited resources and time?
I will, Madam Chair, I'll leave you with a tale of, if you build it, they will come, in this particular case. But if I look back at arguably, probably, I would say in the last, 50 years, 100 years, one of the biggest educational successes we've had on the Iron Range has been the advent of Iron Range Engineering, the four-year engineering school at Mesaba Range College. And that started out a vision of one individual who decided from his conversations with industry partners that there had to be a different way to teach engineering. Gone were the days that you would set students in seat and fill them with knowledge as the teacher. Industry was calling for a different type of engineer, someone that could not only design it, but someone who could fix it, someone who could run it, someone who could do preventive maintenance. That hands-on engineering program has now become a national model for the way engineering is taught. And it's modeled after Olin College in upstate New York. And its original model was Aalborg College in Denmark. And we continued to support the individual that wanted to do that. That individual then got political support, then got legislative support, then got support from the governor to build that building. And that thing is full of kids today, the majority of which are from an area about 100 miles from that school. So I mean, there are possibilities out there and ways to make things work. Engineering has now become, as far as the Applied Learning Institute goes, our #1 enrollment course. So anyway, there are opportunities, and I commend you for wrestling with this thing. I mean, this is something that maybe you kind of wish didn't fall into your lap, but the fact is there could be an opportunity there.
But there also seems to be some confusion that simply because we're asking questions that we're anti this.
Oh, no.
That is
Not
not
from
the
me,
case.
Madam Chair, not
But,
from me.
but I think we would not be doing ourselves or the students or anyone else any big favors by pushing forward on something without knowing what we're pushing forward. So the whole intent of having this meeting was to be able to ask those questions and try and clarify what it is that we're looking at, so that everybody understands what this is, because it's really easy to say, well, we need to do this, it's important, and we're gonna get kids, and this is gonna happen, and that's gonna change. Sounds fine, but we need to pull back and be realistic too, and ask those questions. I'd rather know the answers now than get too deep into it and then go, oh yeah, well, we didn't think it was important to ask. So this, asking those questions doesn't mean we're against it, it simply means we want a better understanding of what it is. We have to be the advocates of this if we go forward. How can we be advocates if we don't even know what it is that we're advocating? So that's why we need to ask.
Agreed.
There needs to be that strength amongst the board that we know what this program even is. And I'm not sure that we're all still real clear on where we're going. And we won't know until we, like Mr. Chat said, until we have talked to these kids. Like I said, this list of names is fine, but it doesn't prove anything. These aren't kids. These aren't people that are going to go, they may not even want an increase on their taxes, so I wouldn't hold those numbers, those names to much, to anything solid. But we need to know what the kids want. And the fact that they're not signing up for some classes, I think already tells us something. It may not be the final answer, but I think it certainly might help us see a pattern. And I don't think that these are real strong numbers anywhere else either, so I just want to make sure that we've got those things in line before we go too deep into this.
Would it be more, I don't know, in the best interest of what everybody wants to look for in the future, of coming up with some kind of a plan to actually get into all the other schools? Ask permission of the boards to come and have somebody set up some kind of a meeting or an email or something for the kids of what their interest would be, if they would be interested in these programs. You could do electronically. Kids are on their phones all the time. And we could do something like that.
Start someplace, let's get a start and.
And then, and if there's no support from the kids, then we'll have to move on from there. But if there's a big interest, why wouldn't we want to keep going and looking into it?
And I think we're all in agreement on
Yeah.
that. But again,
But how
and
do
you've
we-
already
how do
stipulated
we
even
do it?
that we need to be sure that we've
Mhm.
addressed the needs of the students, not the needs
Yeah.
of the grown-ups.
The
We might make the
grown-ups are ones
decisions,
who
but
have
we're
to
not
sit in the
affected.
seats.
That's right.
And they're not the ones who sit in the welding booth, to work on the engines, to work on a lathe, or a milling machine, or learn how to do wiring, how to run circuits.
I'll just say, I'm interested to have another conversation about it, but I would agree with Mona. I don't think we can stick the industrial arts building in this conversation.
That's never.
It would be a big injustice to this whole conversation.
That's
That's two separate things.
That building cost way too much. You could build a brand, like Jeff said, you could build a brand new building with a lot of things in it.
Or perhaps this would be an opportunity to do what we've all addressed over the last many months, and that is to repurpose a portion of one of the buildings that already exists for something like this.
That's.
To help address some of that overabundance of space.
And that's just it, this might be a right timing to
We have a
where,
big section over in Gilbert that's sitting empty right now.
Well, and that's the
And
problem.
that used to be a shop area.
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we could keep this conversation going and maybe in tandem, when we get to that aspect of our facility study, I mean, we can regurgitate some of that information in tandem.
But we can't just jump into it and put what we've already been working on in jeopardy of
No.
just throwing it out with the water, so to say. But we've got to keep an interest into it until we know for sure where we're going to go, if we're going to.
Well, we've left some pretty big directives for a facility study. It
Oh, yeah.
could be one campus, two campus, a new campus. I mean, we have no idea where we're going in there. So we kind of got to wait
To
for the
see-
end game
see if we
to
need
know
to.
where the end game is going to be.
I think, I'm all for it.
I mean, but I'm for, having another conversation, seeing what this could evolve into, but I can't say that we can pull any triggers and start walking
Oh,
around
no.
the neighboring districts and go from there. We gotta figure out what we're asking for first.
Do it right, but do something.
I agree.
And I think this is a good first step.
Okay, thanks, Tom,
Thanks.
for sticking with it.
I do have to leave this.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
But Madam Chair, willing to be a resource if you need, as you guys move forward. But again, I commend you and Mr. Gentilini as well. It's creative thinking. I mean, these are different times. And nothing comes across to me as, I think, not taking at least a look, or if you entered into your thought process, it's on the table for discussion now, and good luck with your process. It's going on. I can tell you, it's going on across the region. It's just the struggles that you're wrestling with are everybody's having. So, but at least you've got your mind on maybe some opportunities. So I appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Tom, thanks.
Thank you, Rick.
See you. I like to see you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well,
Is there
some kind of a way of, you know, getting a hold of the kids, see if they have any interest in it, and go from there, but I'm not one who can tell you how to get their interest, except for going out with a survey, and we know what surveys are. The kids will do it electronically, but as far as when you get the information, we have to know what to do with it once we get it,
And
and
even
how to,
then,
and how to collect it.
yeah, even then, you know, the participation may be low even in the survey, so it's
Yeah.
hard to say what representation you'll get.
Yeah.
You're right, we have to do something, but we need to also be prepared that we may not get the information we hope, so.
Yeah, but we have to do something, I mean, look at.
And like I said, I think we are, the fact that we're meeting and having this discussion, all it is a first step, but the board certainly
It's a
isn't
step.
prepared to take any official action on anything.
We have to look into it, I agree with that, yeah, but let's get a plan going. And,
But I think we are now at the point though where no one can go forward alone. It has to take board action from this point forward, so
Yes.
that anything we do represents
I think we
the
should.
board and not an individual.
Put it on the agenda for the next time for more discussion and then go from there and see what we want to do.
Well, I don't know how much we can discuss without information. I think that would have to
We
be
have to get-
pending.
We need some information,
Yeah.
I'd say within a month, something like that, or more. But we have to find some way of getting a hold of the kids, getting their interest, see if they are interested and what they want. If we're not saying the right thing, what do you want? Other than just sitting like a lump. You know, you can't sit in front of a board, you know, texting all the time or watching a video game. You have to get on with life somehow. But they may have some ideas of what, I really want to do this, but I'm doing this because I'm bored. We have to do something. We should just maybe set up another meeting, see if we can come up with some ideas.
And my only hesitation, you know, thinking about it when you were saying, you know, send out a survey to like all the kids in the area. We may get a lot of interest from a district where the district itself may not have any interest in being a partner to this. So it would give us skewed numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's not to discourage that,
Yeah.
but, you know, it's, if we were to, again, receive information that there were a large number of students from a given district and then find out that district wasn't interested,
Yeah.
it might spur them to take more action, but it might not be good information for us moving forward.
And kids are different now than when we got out of high school. When we went out of high school, you either went to college or you went to a tech school, or you just worked as a laborer someplace. I mean, look at what the tech school was doing. And then when they joined, I don't know, I think a lot of people lost interest because of the other classes they had to mandatory take that they were not interested in. And I think that kind of ruined a lot of people on what they wanted to go into. That's my
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily the right one, but that's what I think it was.
And like what Mr. Smith was saying is, if we do this survey and that, we do have to look outside of Virginia and MIB. We'd also have to look at St. Louis County, Wasabi East, maybe even going to Chisholm. You know, we have to look outside of our area.
Gotta look outside the box.
Could we get even Ely?
Well,
But I mean, of course, the transportation cost could be there, but,
God,
you know.
And the
so you
time,
probably, you know, and
you
the
know, when
time.
you're gonna lose 3 hours for a 1 hour class.
Right.
You know, that would be the only concern.
That's
Some of
it,
it's simply logistics. And even with the telepresence room, we can do just so much with that. If you're doing a manual arts class,
Right,
they're still
that'd
going
be
to be
harder.
hands-on, so you could do a
Yeah.
portion of it, but, yeah, I don't know the answer
I-
either, but,
But, you know, because would we get enough kids just from the Virginia MIB and Eveleth Gilbert? I don't know.
yeah. And we don't know that those districts would even be interested in partnering with
Right.
us.
it's not like the old days where every school had more than enough manual arts classes of their own. I know what it was like in Virginia and Aurora or Lakes. I mean, they had equipment like you wouldn't believe. They had every class that you could think of. And they still have some.
But there was
What?
also a time when
A lot
the
more
academic
kids.
requirements were different, so.
Definitely.
you know, so there were more opportunities to take those, what we now view as electives, you know, could be the core of your education. And that is no
Yeah.
longer the case, unfortunately. Whether we like it or not, that's simply the mandate from the state, so.
Well,
I think we're as done as we can be for
maybe
now,
we
and
can think
we'll,
about some more ideas for the next meeting.
yeah.
And work on it.
Put some effort into it, you know.
But again, I think we're at the point now where this needs to become board action, so it's not that we don't appreciate what you've done, but I think now you need to pull back and understand that as we go forward, it's going to require board action and not,
We can pull a community again, we can look at doing that too, you know, other than this.
but that tells us nothing, because there again, you're not talking about the kids.
Well, to get to the kids, pull parents and have them talk to the kids.
Yeah,
No.
no, I think we asked the
We gotta
kids.
do something, I mean, otherwise we're gonna sit there and our numbers are going down and Virginia's numbers are coming up.
Well,
So,
You know,
I don't know.
From what you're saying, Tom, is that the parent can tell the child, yeah, you're gonna take welding,
Yeah.
and the child turns around and says, no, I don't want it.
yeah, I don't
He
think
doesn't
so.
sign up for it,
No.
and doesn't tell mom and dad.
Oh, they know.
If I had all the answers like that.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're adjourned.